All right. So welcome to the Prep Doctors Live, everyone. Today's discussion is focused on everything to do with immigration for dentists, for international dentists. You're a dentist in your own home country right now. You want to move to Canada. You want to practice your profession over here. How are you going to navigate through everything immigration? That's what this conversation is about today. Today, there's two immigration experts with us over here. We have Mr. Hisham Atyani and we have Mr. Rohan Modi. Their contact details are going to be in the comments. So if you want to have any specific conversations with them after this chat, feel free to contact them and they'll be more than happy to help you guys. So let's jump right. I'm Isha Soni and I'm from Prep Doctors Marketing Department. So let's jump right into our conversation today. It is centered around dentists who are wanting to move to Canada. So obviously the way that you can practice dentistry in Canada is you complete the dental equivalency process, or you get into a university, you achieve your dental license, and then you can legally work as a dentist in Canada. Now, whether they go through the equivalency process or they go through the university process, it's going to be the immigration part is going to be there. They are going to have to understand how to navigate through that. So my first question is to Hisham. What are the options for the types of visas that people can apply for? What are their options if they want to move to Canada and practice as a dentist in terms of the types of visas?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me today. The types of visas for dentists to come here to Canada, if it's for schooling purposes, it would be a study permit or a visitor visa, depending on how long is the program. If it's for immigration purposes, then we have the express entry that is divided into three sections: skilled worker, trade skills, and Canadian experience class.
Okay.
That's mostly, and there are some provincial nominee programs.
Okay.
Okay, they also can apply through those programs as well.
All right. So in the NDEB process, there are three main courses that they have to complete, and all of our courses are less than 5 months, or are less than 6 months. They're all 5 months in duration, except the ACJ, which is a 2 months course. But our courses are 5 months in duration, and that is because they can come and do the courses on a visitor visa. Rohan, can you explain a little bit more about the multiple entry visitor visa to our audience, please?
Sure. So typically when the Government of Canada issues a visitor visa, it is usually 10-year multiple entry visa or until the expiry of your passport, which means that you can enter Canada multiple times on the same visa once you've received it. And once you enter, you can stay in Canada for a maximum period of 6 months at a stretch. Now, during those 6 months, which would be enough for you to pursue either of the courses, because all the courses are less than 6 months. So, if you want to pursue any of the courses which are 5 months or 2 months, you can definitely do that on a visitor visa. You can perhaps, on multiple visits, do multiple different courses while you are here.
Right. Okay, so as we understand, if they are not on a PR, or if the PR is not on the way, then approaching the visitor visa, applying for that would be the best option for them. Is that what we're saying here?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. Now, we get like a lot of questions from people who share stories with us about their visas getting rejected for any reason. Can you please explain to us what are the most common mistakes people make while applying for their visa? Why are some people's visitor visas getting rejected? What are the things that they need to avoid, they need to make sure when they're submitting their application?
First of all, the details in the application. They have to be fully detailed and have the proper information and not misleading immigration. One other reasons would be the financial capability of that they provide with the application process to be accepted to receive a visa to come here. That's most common refusals for the application.
So you're saying that they need to prove that they are going to be able to fund their studies, or they're going to be able to
Exactly.
support themselves financially
Exactly.
when they come to Canada for the course.
Yes. Of
Okay.
course,
Do you have anything to add for?
One is, of course, that, but the second and the most important thing is to show that you have strong ties in your home country for you to return.
Exactly.
On visitor visa means you will come here for a temporary period of time and you have strong reasons to go back to your country.
Right.
So showing, properties or assets, or showing like a full-time job or something that you've got to leave from. or You need to show strong ties back home. Perhaps if you're married, you're traveling here, your spouse and kids are back home, that is a strong reason for you to go back.
Right.
So you need to establish and prove that in your application, that what are your strong ties to return.
Okay, so if we have like a strong application, if we have like a good explanation that we're giving for the points that you've mentioned, then there are very few reasons left for the visas to get rejected. Is that correct?
Yes and no, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, yes, but at times, it is always at the visitor visa. It's at the officer's discretion.
Mhm.
You might have the strongest of application and still might get rejected, and you
Mhm.
might have the weakest of application and still might get accepted.
Mhm.
So we need to make sure that we put forth the strongest of application. If you can do it on your own, well and good. If not, always approach someone who's a specialist in this work, someone who's an immigration consultant who knows what exactly the officer wants to see, and will
Mhm.
make sure that they put forth the strongest application for you.
Right. So there is something that one of our audiences mentioned about the statement of purpose. Hisham, can you tell us what a perfect statement of purpose looks like for immigration?
Well, they have to show the main reason of coming to Canada to attend the education courses that they're willing to take, and they have to show that this is will benefit their specialties and will benefit them in the future regarding work.
Okay.
So it has to be a very strong explanation
Right.
that satisfies the officers
Right.
to have them accept the application.
Right. Do you have anything to add, Rowan, in terms of statement, like a strong statement of purpose, foolproof, for sure, like good, strong application?
Well, pretty much on the same lines. You need to show why you need to do this course, how is it going to add any value to your current credentials, and how will it help you establish a better career in your home country
Right.
eventually. Like how will it help you, be better in what you are currently doing or wish to do back in your country.
Okay. All right. So now we do have an understanding of the different options that people have in terms of coming to Canada to just do the course, or if you're planning on your immigration as a whole, then you can do the PR. If you're just coming for the course, then you can come on a visitor visa, and we're going to talk about how completing the course can help you towards achieving your PR as we move on with the conversation. So we will talk about that. Now, in terms of the NDEB process, in terms of being able to practice dentistry in Canada, people have two options. One is they can either go and complete the whole equivalency process, which is passing the AFK, ACJ, and ACS exams, and then taking the board exams. Passing all those exams, they get their license, they can practice. Or they can go through the university route, wherein they have to still take the AFK exam, and then they can take admission in a university program to get a Canadian equivalent graduate degree. So if, say, someone wants to go through the university route, what are the options that they have in terms of getting admission in a university? What are the visa options that they have?
Well, of course, so it depends if they are outside Canada or inside. Irrespective, if they are, say, inside Canada, they take the AFK exam.
Right.
While they are still here on a visitor visa, we can apply for a study permit for them. As an applicant, they themselves cannot from within Canada, but as a consultant, we can apply for them.
Right.
Typically from outside Canada.
Right.
Now, how this works is once the study permit is approved, we can get it converted from within Canada. Like we can get their visitor visa status converted from visitor visa to the study permit, and then they can continue with their DDS course out here.
Okay. In terms of being able to study in the university program, can they face any complications when they're switching from a visitor visa to a student visa, or is it an easy process?
I wouldn't say it's a very easy process. I would
Okay.
say that, well, there are conditions to meet,
Mhm.
okay, to switch. And one of the main also proofs or documentation that they
Mhm.
have to provide and to show is the financial capability for them to pay for their tuition
Right,
and to pay for the expenses.
right.
If they cannot show this or provide it as a proof
Mhm.
with the application, then mostly it will be refused.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to our conversation about financial options, about student loans. We get this question a lot from our candidates. Dentistry is an expensive subject to study. The license process is very expensive. The university process is even more expensive. As an international dentist, as an international candidate, can they apply for loans in Canada? Do they have any financial options, or is it better for them to get loans or arrange for their finances from their home country? Rohan, do you want to answer that?
Well, in my experience,
Mhm.
most candidates usually arrange their own funds from their home country.
Mhm.
There are a couple of options here, especially if you're going through the DDS program. There are banks and other financial institutions
Mhm.
that will support you. On the condition that you're still an international student, they will support you financially for the course. There are a
Mhm.
few other options, and most universities, dental schools have tie-ups with certain banks so that they can help for that.
Mhm.
But usually for the direct licensing process, what I've seen is there are a few government of Canada programs available, but most people fund their own programs and
Okay.
arrange for funds on their own from their home country.
Okay. Hisham, you were explaining to us some reasons for why it's better for them to show their funds in their application itself. Do you want to add on to what Rohan just shared with us about showing strong financial proof in their application?
Of course, yeah. They have to show strong financial proofs from their country of origin.
Right.
Okay, mostly. Either cash in the bank or assets, properties.
Mhm.
Very strong ties also to go that they will go back after their education is finished.
Mhm.
Which is this is all factors they will look at and study it in the process.
Right.
If they are in Canada
Mhm.
and they want to apply or switch from a visitor to a study permit,
Mhm.
the same kind of documentation, the same proofs, financial proofs will be asked for. Has to be provided
Right.
to the immigration department
Mhm.
so they can accept their applications. Without these proofs,
Mhm.
documentation, the process will be, it will be refused.
Okay.
And one last point to add to that
Sure.
is a lot of times applicants
Mhm.
at their early ages, if they are not able to show that much of funds, at times they can also, like they can have support from their parents or family towards this. So, the parents can support them financially and they can show their documents in order to
Mhm.
support their son or daughter.
Right. But
Depending on the age factor, like if they are very old, then
Yeah.
mostly, I mean, they will not look at it as parents supporting them.
right.
You know,
It's very interesting because, as Hisham said, if they are old, then it might not explain why the parent is still supporting the
Yes.
person who has shown, say, 10 years of work experience on their resume, but on their application, I mean. But as you mentioned, there are a lot of candidates who come here fresh out of college, they're fresh graduates, they don't have that many years of experience.
yeah.
So for a candidate like that who doesn't have so many years of work experience, who's fairly younger, can definitely show parental assets in the financial application.
Especially, I just want to add something.
Sure.
Especially if the parents
Mhm.
are the ones who actually supported them through the education,
Right.
through their first years of education.
Mhm.
It makes sense that the parents are still gonna support their child
Right.
in the licensing as
Mhm.
well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is really good information because showing the financial assets, showing financial proof is where a lot of candidates get sort of confused in terms of their visa. So it's very good information to know what are the right steps, what are the do's and don'ts in terms of showing your financial assets. Now. We talked about the university process and we talked about the equivalency process both. Now both the processes are time consuming, especially if they are doing university, then they get their they get shifted to the student visa, they're good. But if they are doing the process on a visitor visa, if they're going through the equivalency process on a visitor visa, it can take anywhere between 2 to 3 years. It can, because it could take multiple attempts. They could sort of decide to take a little break between the courses. What are the options for them in terms of can they work during this time? Can they have a legal employment? Is it not advisable? Is it advisable because they might be on the student visa? Can they take internships? Please explain. Rohan, do you want to start by that?
Sure. So by default, on a visitor visa, you're not legally allowed to work in Canada, come what may. On a student visa, there are certain conditions that you can work certain number of hours while your course is on, and breaks you can work full time. So that is on the student visa. But on a visitor visa, unfortunately, you won't be able to work. But as you rightly said, that it might take a couple of years to complete all the 3 exams and stuff like that. So in that case, what they could do is, there are 2 options. If someone's on a visitor visa, that either we can extend their visitor visa. So by default, you can stay for 6 months. But if it's taking longer, we can extend their visitor visa from within Canada. They don't need to leave Canada. Second option is, they can perhaps make a quick trip back home. Most people miss their family. They can make a trip back home, come back, and from the day they enter again, another 6 months would start. If someone has a US visitor visa, they could just go to the US, visit for a day or 2, come back, and another 6 months would start from there on.
Hisham, do you have any options? Say someone wants to do an internship while they're doing the equivalency process. Is that a possibility at all?
It is possible, but they have to obtain permission from immigration. They have to apply for an open work permit so they can do the internship. Which has to be also shown that they are registered with a certain institution so that immigration can accept their application for open work permit.
All right. So ideally, it's better that if they are on a visitor visa, then they just sort of focus on the course, and legally they are not allowed to have an income, so they may not be able to work. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Shouldn't work.
Shouldn't work. Yes, they will not be allowed to work. It's interesting. The reason why we're sort of focusing on these points, and we're making our candidates understand the technicalities of immigration, is that if obviously they all want to stay here and practice as dentists in Canada, so in the future they want to make sure that there are no glitches in the records, there are no glitches in the whole, in all the years that they've spent in Canada. So having that strong background, I think, is very important.
Definitely, because you want to be here for the long run, not just, it's not a temporary situation. So might as well be clean.
Right. Okay. Now, let's jump into the most important conversation about PRs. That's sort of the route that everyone wants to take. Obviously, as we discussed, they're coming on their visitor visas, but they are going through this whole tedious, long process of dental equivalency because they want to stay here, they want to reside in Canada. Hisham, can you explain to us what the PR is? What are the categories that dentists can apply for within PR?
Of course. PR is a permanent residence in Canada. People can apply for it through the federal program, which is the express entry, or they can apply through the federal program under the provincial nominee program. Okay, and they have to meet certain conditions to be able to qualify and to be able for them to be eligible actually to get into the pool of immigration.
Okay.
It's a process. Let's say the federal program takes about 1 year. The file takes about 1 year. They through that year, if they are nominated, there's a profile, then there's a nomination. If they are nominated, then they will be they can proceed for permanent residency in Canada. Otherwise, they cannot.
Right.
So basically, if they are in Canada and they want to obtain the PR, they have to meet the conditions. For them to be physically in Canada does not mean that they are eligible to apply under the Canadian Experience class, for example.
Okay.
Unless if they have an offer of employment, a job offer, with a Canadian employer,
Right.
okay, which is, we call it LMIA approval.
LMIA.
Yeah,
Yes.
LMIA, which is Labor Market Impact Assessment.
Mhm.
If they have the approval and the job offer, then they can work for 1 full year
Mhm.
of full-time employment
Okay.
and paying taxes under the payroll.
Right.
After that 1 year, they are eligible to apply under the Canadian Experience class,
Mhm.
which actually providing with more points to qualify for the PR.
Right. Okay, let's break this down a little bit to sort of help our candidates understand this
Sure.
better.
Sure.
So if they want to practice as a dentist, there are two options. There are two things that they need to do. One is they need to complete their licensing process
Exactly.
if they want to practice as a dentist.
Yes.
Second thing is they need to be eligible to work in Canada and then go towards their PR. What you explained to us was the PR process.
Yes.
And if they are on a visitor visa, then they need to find an employer who will file for their labor market impact assessment, LMIA, who's willing to file for an LMIA. And then if they find this employer, they can then post this in their PR application, and LMIA will actually mean higher points and a more successful
Exactly.
PR application.
Adding more points toward their approval
Absolutely.
for the permanent residency.
Okay. Rohan, in terms of your experience with specifically dentists, how have you seen cases progress in terms of dentists who completed their licensing process and then went towards their PR? How does it usually work?
So most dentists that we work with,
Mhm.
how it usually happens is either they are doing it concurrently, so they are going through their PR process at the same time they are going through the dental equivalency and licensing process,
Right.
or they kind of split it that I might just take the first exam AFK while I'm still going through the PR process, maybe on a visitor visa or something.
Mm-hmm.
And once I receive my PR down the line and I'm in Canada, I'll be taking the other exams.
Right.
So definitely, and the benefit that dentists have is one. So when we talk about the point system, it's basically on age, education, work experience, and your English language skills.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you get additional points for Canadian education or Canadian work experience. Now, the benefit that dentists have is that even though it's a bachelor's degree, a BDS, bachelor's degree, it is still counted equivalent to a master's or a professional degree from the PR purview. So when they are claiming points, they get additional points than someone with regular, just a bachelor's of commerce or a bachelor of arts, they would get more points.
Right.
So that really, gets them up on the competition now, because it is very competitive now.
It is. Getting the points is like, every point matters.
Every point matters.
Absolutely. So one of our most common questions, and it's a very legitimate question, is what to do first. Should we start the NDEB licensing process first? Should we start the PR process first? Because the PR process can take anywhere between 1 to 3 years. The NDEB process is going to take anywhere between 1 to 3 years as well. Is there a hierarchy? Is there anything that they should start with first? What is your opinion?
They actually can start both at the same time.
Okay.
There's no objection to that. They can study,
Mm-hmm.
go through their licensing, as well apply for immigration if they qualify.
Right.
If they don't qualify through receiving the points to be eligible,
Mm-hmm.
then they have to wait until they finish the education,
Right.
which adds more points toward them, and that will help in being nominated in the future.
Right. We often advise our candidates that even though you're waiting for your PR or you're thinking about the PR, go ahead with that, but don't wait till you complete the whole PR process to then start your licensing process, because you've already waited for a couple of years for that PR to come through. You're gonna have to wait for like a couple of more months or a year or more to complete the process. So we recommend them to start both together, even licensing earlier. Is that a good recommendation?
I would advise on that, but have in mind, I was going to add that one of the main requirements
Mm-hmm.
to apply for a PR
Mm-hmm.
is to have an experience
Right.
for a minimum of 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
A person cannot apply while he's not graduated from school.
Right.
Graduation has to happen
Mm-hmm.
first to be granted, and then work for at least a minimum 1 year,
Right.
and then can be eligible to apply for a PR.
Right.
Of course, with meeting the other conditions as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to add anything, Rohan, to that?
Indeed. So 1 year of full-time work experience
Mhm.
is a necessity for PR amidst other things also.
Right.
So a lot of times, people come to me, they are still in the 3rd year or 4th year of
Mhm.
their BDS program. Now they ask me, is it the right time? Should I start now? Because I'm seeing, my seniors going. I think I'm excited. I want to start now. I would say it's a little too early.
Mhm.
Try and finish, get at least 1 year of work experience. While you are gaining that,
Mhm.
we can start the prep work.
Right.
We can keep most things ready. The only thing that we are waiting for is for you to complete your 1 year of work experience, and the day you complete that, after which we can immediately apply.
Right.
We shouldn't be like, you complete 1 year, then we start all the other things, which might
Mhm.
take another couple of months to gather,
Mhm.
and then we apply. You would lose out time. So might as well keep everything ready. If you want in that 1 year period, take your
Mhm.
language test, keep everything else ready.
Right.
And the moment you complete 1 year, and if you qualify, we'll straight away go ahead and apply them.
Okay. I have a question. If, as you mentioned, language tests, if someone is completing the whole licensing process, do they still have to take the Ielts? Do they still have to take the language tests for their application? They do.
Yes, they do.
There is no
Yes.
option around IELTS
It's not,
here.
it's not an
Okay.
option. This is mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, good to know. So you guys have to, it's nice to sort of know the chronology of the events, because there is definitely a lot of factors that need to be considered. There's a lot of steps that need to be undertaken. So if you sort of want to focus on your studies on the NDEB process, on the equivalency process, then getting a complete clarity in terms of the immigration process would be very helpful. So it's great that you're explaining all the factors chronologically. So the answer to what to do first is that ideally they should start both together.
Typically around the
Yes.
same time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe start the PR application, get your visitor visa, attend the course, start preparing for the exams. You can even take the NDEB exams while you're on a visitor visa. You do not need your PR to be able to take the NDEB exams. You do not need your PR to be able to sit in any of the licensing exams. So that is good information to share with them as well. So that's basically what I have to share in terms of the questions that I had in terms of the PR. I would like to sort of bring the conversation slightly back to the NDEB process, because if anyone has any questions about the courses, the actual licensure process, just contact Prep Doctors at any point. We are always available to talk to you guys on Facebook, or you can send us an email, or you can check our website www.prepdoctors.ca. With BDS and 1 year of experience. We talked about this 1 year of experience. What is the process to immigrate, he asks. So do you want to answer that?
Definitely. So he definitely qualifies for the Federal Skilled Worker Program.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's very difficult to say with the limited information, but prima facie he looks eligible.
Mm-hmm.
He should start his process now, because
Mm-hmm.
as I said, the PR process will take almost a year, and so will the other licensing processes. So he should definitely start his process. One is taking the language test, and probably before doing anything, getting in touch with us so we can put framework for you, like what to do next, what all,
Right.
because it's not like one after the other. So
Mhm.
a lot of things happen concurrently, and for someone who's not been through this,
Mhm.
it might be overwhelming.
Absolutely.
So get in touch. We'll put a pathway for you, what to do,
Right.
what not. But yes, definitely he is eligible.
All right. So he is eligible to apply, and he is eligible for a PR, right? Okay. Do you have anything to add, Hisham?
I would mention also the accreditation of the
Mhm.
degree, which is it's also an important factor in applying for a PR.
Okay.
That's one of the major conditions
Right.
in the PR.
Right. Now, this also, since you mentioned accreditation, for NDEB, they have to get approved by the NDEB to begin the process. The application process to get approved by them before you even start studying for the exams is quite, it can take quite a few weeks. It can take anywhere between 12 to 15 weeks. And they submit they have to have the university submit the transcripts directly to the NDEB. There's like a lot of paperwork that needs to be submitted.
Yes.
Having gone through this process, in order to get their approval from the board, can this sort of be okay for the PR process as well, or do they need to start over?
They would need also to have the accreditation done by the institutions approved by Immigration Canada.
Okay.
After this process, NDEB process is done, they still also have to apply for accreditation from institutions like WES, World
Right.
Education Services.
Okay, so they are two different things.
Yes, yes.
Having gotten your approval from NDEB does not mean that you have finished all the requirements for your PR.
It's not enough, no.
It is a similar procedure. Their universities will still need to send their transcripts and other
Right.
credentials to one of the educational credential assessment agencies that
Right.
is approved by IRCC.
Mhm.
It is a similar procedure, but unfortunately, they have to do it separately.
They have to do it separately. So they have to make sure that they're taking care of both the procedures. So, getting your accreditation from WES is not going to get your approval from the NDEB, versus getting your approval from the NDEB is not going to help you get the WES or any other accredited institutes
Exactly.
approvals. So that is good information. The next question, maybe Hisham, you can answer that, comes from Dr. Twyla. She asks, is a full-time internship considered as a 1-year experience?
A full-time internship, if the graduation is not actually has been done
Mhm.
yet, and
Mhm.
as my colleague, we did discuss this,
Okay.
it would not be enough to apply or to count as a full-time experience.
Okay.
Okay, because what full-time experience is, it has to be 30 hours minimum a week,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a paid job. It's like a paid job,
Mhm.
full payment salary,
Right.
and it has to be for 1 year minimum
Right.
to be accepted.
Before your graduation.
Well, before the graduation, but to be in the safe side,
Mm-hmm.
it would be better to have this experience, or after graduation.
After graduation.
To
Okay.
be on the safe side.
All right. So as we mentioned, it is ideal if your internship experience is after your graduation, if you're showing finances for the wages you earned during the
Yes.
time of your internship. So you have to show your wages, your taxable wages. You have to show that you paid your taxes for that time, and
Yes.
it has to be minimum 30 hours a week. So if that was your internship, and it was for 1 year duration, then it could qualify. Do you have anything to add to that, Rohan?
Sure. So, as you rightly said,
Mm-hmm.
anything that is a part of your coursework for you to graduate,
Mm-hmm.
so typically an internship,
Right.
wouldn't be counted.
Right.
I would say it's a gray area, but wouldn't be counted.
Right.
Typically, once you graduate, once you
Mhm.
finish, you get your degree for dentistry.
Right.
After that, whatever you work
Mm-hmm.
could be counted. Now, a lot of
Okay.
times, a lot of people ask me, I have my own clinic or I have my own practice. Can
Mhm.
that work experience be counted?
Right.
Yes, it can be counted. I mean, we need to show the necessary more paperwork and
Mhm.
need to prove that experience, because it is like, it's not that you can write yourself a job reference letter for
Right.
your own self. So we need to show a lot of references from your clients that you worked with and other things, but it
Mhm.
is also doable. So
Okay.
someone might not have been working for another clinic, but
Right.
have their own practice and still qualify.
Right. So from what I'm getting from Hisham and Rohan both is that if this internship was not a requirement for graduation, then you have a higher chance of of your internship being considered as a work
Exactly.
experience. All right, thank you. The next question comes from Dr. Shalaka. Again, she's asking, is it better to get the PR first or get the licensing first?
Both together.
Both together. Start both together. They're going to take a while. It's a long process, so we would recommend starting both together. Even maybe starting preparing for the licensing earlier, because it's tedious, it's difficult, it's a lot of studying. But ideally both together. Don't wait for either one to get finished first. It's not like a chronology or anything like that.
Just to add to that, time is of essence in this whole process.
Absolutely.
The more time passes, the older you get, you keep getting lesser points to qualify even for the PR.
Okay.
So never really postpone or wait that,
Mhm.
first I'll clear this and then I'll get onto my PR.
Mhm.
What if you clear this and the PR doesn't get through? So
Right.
it's always better to do it concurrently together.
Absolutely.
And,
All
and
right.
also requirements might change, by the time that they want to apply. If they wait 2-3 years, there could be some changes happen to the immigration
Absolutely.
regulations,
Right.
which is advisable not to wait for so long if you qualify.
Okay, all right, that's great advice. So the next question comes from Dr. Jawad. He's asking how much deposit is needed to show in your financial sort of proofs. How much do they need to show in the financial proofs?
For what kind of program? Is it the
I
visa, or is it
believe he's asking for the visa. He's also asking if the Schengen visa is necessary.
Well, Schengen Visa has nothing to do with the approval
Okay,
of the visa section.
right.
They do a background check.
Okay,
This is why they do required biometrics,
Mhm.
okay, to do a background check.
right.
But as for the financials,
Mhm.
it depends on how much the program costs. Plus, they have to count the tuition fees.
Mhm.
They have to count the expenses, living expenses for 1 full year.
Right.
Okay, not less than 1 year.
Mhm.
Let's say if the tuition is $20,000
Mhm.
and the living expenses is about $30,000 a year,
Right.
so he has to show a minimum of $50,000.
Okay. Now, showing a minimum amount versus having a deposit, are they two different things?
Having a deposit meaning in the bank, like
Yes.
having a bank statement,
Yes.
or they have to show at least 3 months of bank statement
Right.
with the application,
Right.
plus a bank letter
Right.
certifying that the person has been opening this account for this time, this
Okay.
period of time,
Okay.
and that he's a client with the bank for this much time,
Right.
and the balance that is equal to the Canadian dollar.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Do you have anything to add to this answer?
Sure. So typically for a visitor visa,
Mhm.
you have to cover all these points that, what is your purpose, whether you are able to take care of yourself financially and a little above that.
Right.
For PR, there is a specific amount, like a,
Right.
cut-off
Yes.
amount set by the government,
Mhm.
depending on your family size. Whether
Right.
you're a single applicant, whether you're married, you have kids, depending on the number of family applicants,
Right.
there is a set minimum number that you need to show in order to qualify for PR.
Yes.
And anything above that is fine, but you
Mhm.
need to show at least that much.
Right. Okay. The next question comes from Dr. Antara Goswami. What is the requirement? She asks Ielts or TOEFL?
IELTS.
IELTS. From what I know, Canada doesn't accept TOEFL.
There's actually 2 of them.
Right.
Okay, there's IELTS
Mhm.
and there's CELBIP.
CELBIP.
Now CELBIP
Okay.
is being provided in Dubai only.
Okay.
Like they have a branch in Dubai.
All right.
So both of them are accepted for immigration to Canada.
Okay. So for as the experts mentioned, your options are IELTS or CELBIP. TOEFL is not accepted in Canada.
And for French-speaking population,
Mm-hmm.
they can also take the TEF exam, which is a French-only exam.
Okay.
Yes.
And CELBIP, yes, it's also now available in India
Okay.
and other regions. So either the IELTS General
Mhm.
or the CELBIP. Again, there are 2 modules in IELTS, General and Academic.
Mhm.
You need to take the General one for immigration, not the
Okay.
academic one.
Even if they're showing that they're going to be studying for the equivalency process, they still will need to take the general ones, right?
Then they will need to take both.
Okay.
In terms of, for the PR, it's only the General, no
General.
exceptions.
Okay.
If they are planning to do a course here or
Mhm.
something, depending on the university, if
Application
they
and
need it,
Institution, yeah.
then they will
Mhm.
have to take the IELTS academic.
Okay, that's great information. Okay, the next question again comes from Dr. Shalaka Kale. She asks, are dentists eligible for provincial nomination from any region? And what are the requirements? Do you want to answer that, Hisham, about the PNP? Are dentists eligible for PNP?
Occupations in demand in provinces
Mhm.
For dentists and doctors in general, they are required there
Okay,
as well. Yeah, they are eligible to apply in those provinces,
all right.
depending on the qualifications. Beside one of the major requirements there is to have a job offer.
Okay,
If they don't have a job offer,
Right.
their application will not be processed. They
okay,
have to have an employer who's willing to hire them there. And
right.
of course, this has to do with licensing, being eligible to work in Canada, and so on.
Right. So I would understand that, say someone completes the licensing process successfully and then finds an employer to file for their LMIA in one of these provinces, then they would become eligible for
Yes.
the PNP.
Correct.
Right. And I think PNP is very valuable in terms of your PR application. You go right on top and it definitely helps a lot. So yes, dentists are, as Hisham mentioned, eligible for the provincial nominee program. The next question comes from Umar Ahmad, Dr. Umar Ahmad. How long does it take to get PR after ITA? Do you want to answer that, Rohan?
The government promises a timeline of 6 months.
Okay.
Once you, not after the ITA, once you receive the ITA, you have 2 months, 60 days to submit all your further documentation.
Right.
Once you submit that documentation, then the government is like, we promise a timeline of 6 months in most cases.
Okay.
Usually, I've seen in my experience, most people get their PR within that 6 months.
All right.
But at times it could go up to 7 or 8 months depending on the complexity of their profile, or if it's taking time to, for the background or security check, it might take a while, but typically I would say 6 months.
Okay. All right. Dr. Alia Patrawala asks, giving the NDEB exam, will it be applicable for the whole of Canada? I think I can answer this question. Yes, if you complete the licensing process, this licensing process is for the whole of Canada. However, you will need to apply for the respective colleges for your license in the province that you want to practice in. So that's the answer. They have to still apply for the provincial license. They don't have to. It's not too much complex of a procedure once they've completed the licensing process.
Can I add one quick point to
Sure.
that? A lot of times I get this question, oh, if I get my NDEB license in Canada, with that same license, can I practice in the US? So, I just wanted to put some light on that.
Sure.
That if someone does a DDS program and graduates, then that Canadian license would be valid for them to practice in US. Of course, they have to take the registration in the US,
Right.
but they would be. But if they go through the direct licensing, then unfortunately that is like valid in Canada, but not in the US.
Okay, that's great information. Good to know. Now the next question comes from Dr. Shivaraman Srinivasan. What are the chances of government funding or scholarship for graduation in dentistry? You mentioned that you spoke to some financial experts regarding this, Hisham. Can you throw some light on this? What are there any options for government funding or scholarships for someone who's going to university for dentistry? International
scholarships this procedure has to do with the universities mostly, right? But to ask for let's say a student loan from banks in Canada, for non-residents of Canada, they are not eligible to receive any kind of funding from banks, private banks.
Right.
So it's only for Canadians or PRs.
Okay.
But I think my friend Rohan mentioned something about some funding or loans specific for that can be granted for non-residents of Canada. If you want to elaborate about that.
So most DDS programs and dental schools have tie-ups with banks and financial institutions here. So if you are on your student visa and studying, you can still avail that.
Okay.
It's like a loan that is given to you by a Canadian bank. You can avail that. You don't need to show a lot of backup or other things, for that. But if you're a permanent resident, of course, and then you choose to study any of the programs, yes. Also, there is something called as the student assistance plan, wherein the provincial government pays off your fees directly to the college, a part of it, depending on your eligibility, and then you have to repay the government 6 months or 1 year after your course is over in monthly installments.
Okay.
Plus, they give you a living allowance and some grants and scholarships. But this program is only eligible for permanent residents or citizens.
Okay.
For someone who's on a student visa, it's only the banks or the financial institutions that have a tie-up with all the dental schools who would provide them. But on a visitor visa, unfortunately, nothing.
That's great information. Now let's see. The next question comes from Dr. Fadi Halim. The work contract is based on salary, or might an association contract work as well to obtain temporary residency? I believe he's asking about LMIA and the kind of requirements for the LMIA. Would you be able to explain more?
LMIA is a process that the employer has to go through actually for the employee. Let's say a person has received an offer from an employer in Canada, then the employer has to apply for LMIA
Okay.
to get the approval.
Right.
So for them to hire a temporary foreign worker in Canada. Without this approval, a person cannot work in Canada, cannot later apply for a PR from inside of Canada.
Okay.
So it's a full process.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's a very specific question, and we do need some more. The immigration
Exactly.
experts need some more information on the type of contract you're referring to, the
Yes.
type of organization you're referring to. The next question I'm gonna take is from. Okay, so we have this one question about spouse and their PR. So this particular dentist, she moved to Canada after getting married. She's married to a Canadian citizen. I don't know if it's a citizen or a PR, but she was a dentist back home. She's asking what are her options in order to practice.
All right, so basically what can happen, this could be two scenarios where one, the spouse who's outside of Canada is already sponsored.
Right.
She's gotten her PR and then he or she has moved to Canada.
Okay.
In that case, they are also permanent resident. They can do whatever they like.
Right.
In case where they are planning to get married or they are married and the sponsorship process for PR is still ongoing, in that time what they can do is perhaps if the spouse was in Canada when they applied, say on a visitor visa. So if I am a spouse, I'm on a visitor visa, I get married to a Canadian permanent resident or citizen. Now if I'm already in Canada, when putting in the application for my sponsorship, we can put in also an application for an open work permit.
Okay.
So that will allow me to live and work in Canada on the work permit till the time my PR comes through.
Right.
But if I am outside of Canada, when we put in the sponsorship application, then the only option is for me to get a visitor visa, come stay with my spouse, maybe take the equivalency exams while I'm doing that, and eventually wait for my PR to come through.
All right. Hisham, in your experience of spousal work permits, spousal visas, do you want to add something more to this conversation, this question about this lady?
No, my friend here, he explained that, but as he mentioned that at the same time a spousal sponsorship application is submitted, a work permit, an open work permit application can be submitted at the same time.
Right.
It takes about 3-4 months for the work permit to be received.
Okay.
And then they are eligible to work in Canada freely.
Perfect.
If they want to study, I just want to add, if they want to study during the time until the PR process is finalized, then they have to also apply for a study permit.
Okay.
It depends on taking exams. I don't think they need a study permit.
Right.
But if they want to go through a certain program
Right.
at an education institution, they have to apply for a study permit.
Okay. So say they want to get into university or something, then they do need to apply for the education permit. Versus if they're, waiting for their PRs to come through and then just taking the equivalency process, they're free to study, they're free to prepare for the exams, they're free to even take the exams.
Yes.
Correct.
So, all right, that's great explanation. Now the next question comes from Dr. Alia Patrawala. Being in the final year of BDS, when is the best time to start the whole process of the NDEB exam and the PR application? Do you want to answer that, Rohan?
Sure. I think right now would be a good time.
Okay.
Although we won't be able to apply immediately because as I previously spoke that we need 1 year of work experience for you to qualify.
Right.
But then besides work experience, there are a lot of other factors, language tests, your educational evaluation and transcripts and stuff. So at least we can start all that process in that 1 year and just wait for that candidate to finish 1 year of work experience. And the moment they finish and they meet all the other requirements, we can then straight away go ahead and submit the application rather than waiting for them to first complete 1 year, then starting all the processes which might take another couple of months or a year and then submitting.
That's great information. Hisham, the next question comes from Dr. Khyati. She asks if the PR is necessary to get into a university DDS program.
I don't think it's necessary.
No.
Even if they are international students and they have acceptance,
Right.
they still can be enrolled.
Right. But in order to get into a DDS program, if they are an international candidate, they will still need to go through the NDEB, they will need to get their approval,
The full process,
take the AFK, and then they can get into a DDS program. So as we mentioned earlier on in this discussion, you can start this process on your visitor visa. Once you get into the DDS program, you can switch on to student visa. PR is not necessary for this process, and while all of this is going on, you can apply for your PR.
Correct.
Okay. Now, the next question is, after we get the PR, will we be allowed to work as an assistant or a hygienist till we get our license to practice as a dentist? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can go for that. So as a hygienist, no, because hygienists have their own separate licensing
Right.
process. So you cannot work directly as a hygienist.
Mhm.
As a dental assistant, in a few cases, yes. It really varies. There are a few other small certifications you might need to undergo before you can actually touch a patient,
Mhm.
But yes, you can. Certain times you can be like a bench side assistant, just observing or helping with a few other things. But there are limited scope of work that you can do as a dental assistant without taking any licensing exams or any course in Canada.
Right.
But it's a good way to work, support yourself
Absolutely.
financially while you are going through the dental equivalency and licensing process.
Absolutely. If you have a PR, then we do recommend sort of getting started with work. We send our candidates entry-level job openings. We send them information about the jobs that are available in the market from prep doctors to our candidates. So we do recommend getting some level of dentistry work started while they're waiting for their PRs. It also differs from candidates to candidates. Some people sort of want to just focus on the studies, which is a great thing to do. Some also choose to start working, so it differs from candidate to candidate, but it depends on what you want to do and whether it's okay to do that, because as Rohan mentioned, you cannot work as a hygienist because that until you get your license to practice as a hygienist as well. So next question is from Dr. Mary Rufina. Are there many dentists successful? Are many dentists successful in getting their license in Canada after they take the prep doctor's course? I can answer that. So since the time we started, we have helped over 5,000 dentists go through the process. They've completed the process. They're successfully practicing all over Canada, not just in Ontario, but in all the provinces of Canada. The idea is to give you the most concise and the most organized course, so you complete this process. You only get 3 attempts per exam. So we want to make sure that you clear the exam in the least number of attempts in the shortest amount of time, and you're studying in a very focused manner. So the answer to your question is yes, many dentists are successful, and we have helped over 5,000 dentists achieve their dental license in Canada. The next question comes from Dr. Jaideep Sant. He asks, does the spouse have to appear for Ielts if the spouse applies as a dependent? Do you want to answer that, Hisham?
If the spouse apply as a dependent?
Yes.
Yes, she has to take IELTS, of course, this is mandatory.
Okay.
But if, let's say, the spouse is applying with the main applicant,
Mhm.
okay, so it's better, we always recommend that the spouse takes the IELTS exam
Mhm.
and try to receive as much points as possible
Right.
to assist in receiving the cap, or getting to the cap rate, so they can be qualified for immigration.
Okay.
We always recommend both of them take the IELTS. Of course, the scores will differ.
Right.
Like the spouse score, she has to get, or he has to get level 4 at the
Mhm.
minimum.
Mhm.
But the main applicant, we always recommend level 7, which is that's mandatory.
Right.
But even higher, depending on the evaluation.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question comes from Dr. Fadi Halim. Can a relative, say a sister, sponsor you for a PR, and can you get an open permit if a relative is sponsoring you? I see Hisham nodding. I think both of you nodding. So
Siblings cannot sponsor you.
okay.
If you get married to someone, or your parents are here,
Mhm.
or your grandparents, only
Okay.
they can sponsor you. But siblings, unfortunately, not. But one benefit that you have is, say, if I am applying and I have a real brother or sister, mother, father, grandfather, grandmother who's a Canadian permanent resident or a citizen, I will get 15 additional points in the express entry application
Okay.
by the virtue of me having those blood relatives in
All
Canada.
right.
But besides that, they cannot sponsor me in any way.
Okay.
The only
So-
way you can sponsor is your spouse
Okay.
or your parents
All
in the
right.
future.
But to
Yeah.
elaborate more, the
Mhm.
depend or to sponsor someone, they have to be under 22 years old,
Okay.
single and under 22 years old.
All
Not
right.
Like some people look at the 30 and 40 years old, and they think that the parents can sponsor them. No, in the
Okay.
country they cannot.
All right.
You have to be a dependent on the parents,
Mm-hmm.
for example, to be able for them to be able to sponsor you to come to
Okay.
Canada.
All right, that's very good information for sponsorship of visas. I'm just gonna rush through this, through all the comments that are coming through to see if I've not missed any questions. Let me see. Okay, I've got like this. This question came through on Instagram. The said person's visas got rejected. There could be n number of reasons for the visa to get rejected. This person tried to open a file, tried to find out what was the reason. If a visa gets rejected once, does it hamper the chances of reapplying for the visa? What are the options that this person has? Rohan, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So to keep it simple,
Mhm.
no. If there is a rejection on your first application,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that you cannot apply again.
Okay.
Apply. So they will always give you a reason why they have rejected in the
Right.
rejection email or the letter. They will give you a reason.
Mhm.
So if you feel you can address those
Mhm.
reasons, apply again.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. And also there is no gestation period that, you know what, if it's rejected, I cannot apply for the next 3 months or 6 months, nothing
Alright.
like that. You can apply till the time you meet and address those requirements.
Mhm.
Also, one big misconception is, oh, you know what, my visitor visa, I'm scared to apply for the visitor visa, or my visitor
Mhm.
visa got rejected. Will it affect my PR?
Right.
No. There is something called as a dual intent,
Mhm.
which means that the outcome of one temporary class visa, which is a visitor visa, would
Mhm.
not affect the outcome of your PR visa. Till the time you meet all the minimum requirements for PR,
Right.
you will definitely get it, even though your visitor visa might have been rejected 5 times.
Okay.
You know?
All right. That's great to know. Do you want to add something to this?
As my friend mentioned,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that someone got rejected one time that
Right.
they cannot apply. They have to address the reasons
Right.
of rejection
Okay.
and to apply. Most of them are standard reasons
Mhm.
that they address in the letter of refusal.
Okay.
If a person feels that they are being not being treated fairly in the application process,
Mhm.
there's always we can do an access of information to request the report from the visa section what had happened in the application process. But this is really we do it. I mean, it depends on the case.
All right. That's great information. I'm going to take one last question from Dr. Astha. She's asking, is there a minimum salary criteria along with the 1-year experience certificate that's required? Hisham, do you want to answer that?
Of course, any LMIA
Mhm.
approved LMIA that for a job offer or for
Mhm.
employment in Canada,
Mhm.
it has to meet certain conditions. One of the major major conditions of this LMIA is that the employer has to pay the median wage for the
Okay.
employee.
Correct.
If they don't offer the median wage, then immediately it will be refused.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about showing the prior 1-year experience from your home country? If you're showing that in your PR application,
Yeah.
is there a minimum wage criteria for that? Is there a minimum salary?
For the PR,
Yes, if you're showing
No.
your work experience
no,
from
that
your home
doesn't matter.
country.
No, it does
Okay.
not matter.
But then it can't be an absurd amount also, like,
Yeah.
you know, it should look, you know, it's
Right.
a little legit, justifiable.
Has to be sensible.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
should make sense.
All right. I think that's all the. We still have a lot of questions, and we'll be getting back to you in the comments. This is it for our conversation today. Feel free to continue sending us your questions, and we'll try to answer them as much as possible. If you have any questions about the NDEB equivalency process, about the exams, about how to achieve your dental licensure, contact us. We'll take you through the process. Take a look at our previous Prep Doctors live conversations. We've gone through the basics that you need to get started. And we're always there to answer your questions on Facebook, on email. Contact us, contact Rohan and Hisham. They'll be happy to answer all your immigration related queries. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us, everyone.